This is the landed opportunity that no one's talking in the market right now, and I'm talking about new build landed homes. In the past, pre-COVID, we were talking about a 40% difference from the resale market to new sales. During COVID, now we're talking construction, supply chain demands, cost of materials going up. Due to the COVID period, now we are looking at almost 60% increase over resale prices and new builds. Now, what does that opportunity mean now in the market? That the gap has narrowed to less than 20%. I'm sarahxmiracle, a landed realtor, and I help you make family-centric decisions to benefit your family, not just for this generation, but for generations to come. I'm a mama for myself, and I am a strong believer in the landed asset because of the scarcity point of view in Singapore that there isn't going to be any more landed in Singapore. I'm personally looking to purchase a landed plot as well, so stay along with me as I journey on the other side with my family. But in the meantime, I am eyeing the landed market like a hawk to give you the best insights possible. So without further ado, I'm going to break down the data and you can decide for yourself whether or not this opportunity is something that you can catch on, and if you want recommendations on your next landed purchase, whether or not you're buying an additional one or upgrading from an existing landed or moving from a condo into a landed, I'd be very happy. Scan this QR code and we can have a consult. No obligation, just for me to share my market insights and for you to give me your goals and dreams so that we can work together. Now let's move on to the video. Looking here in the graph in 2020, we can see the average resale prices for landed were about 1,003, 1,004 PSF, and landed new builds were going at about 1,009 PSF. Now, at the peak of the COVID supply chain disruption in 2022, we're talking about a 2,658 PSF for new builds for landed compared to a 1,600. Now, of course, this is an average across the whole of Singapore. So we're talking about both OCR, RCR, and CCR. Now, that difference was almost 60%, and you can imagine that most people will find it hard to stomach. But fast forward to the present day, we see a convergence in the pricing of resale landed as well as new builds. Now, firstly, the supply chain issues that bugged our COVID years are no longer so prevalent, but that doesn't mean construction costs have significantly dropped. It just means that some of the bottlenecks are no longer there. So construction costs are now a lot more predictable, and in terms of timelines, they're not so dragged out, because a lot of the cost also in construction is the time that it took to complete a project. So right now, we only have a difference of 19.26% in between a new build and a resale landed. Now, what does it tell you about the entire resale market as well as the opportunity to buy new builds? Well, firstly, if you are buying into the resale market for landed, you must have that 100% awareness that we are buying at record prices. We have personally transacted quite a few landed this year, and we can definitely see that as each transaction goes by, the next transaction jumps up again and again and again, and that transaction stacking is going across the whole of Singapore. And we have already sold at record prices, various different asset classes of landed, and we can see that buyers are willing to pay a premium. Now, in one of my next videos, I'm going to be showing you how, for example, most recently we have two Namli area plots that went for more than 3,000 PSF in one case and a high 2007, 2008 in the other case in a resale rebuild format. Now, if I want to illustrate this point of the difference between a new build and a resale like rebuild plot, I think it is great to look at District 10, because District 10 detached plots are where you might find the pinnacle, right, of what's going on, detached and semi-detached plots. And so what's interesting is that we have two detached plots going very recently, one in August for 3,153 PSF. By the way, this is rebuilt plot. Now, this is not exactly a house that you might want to stay in straight away. The house is a little bit old, you can see from the picture over here. But one nice thing about this plot is that the frontage is wide enough to potentially subdivide, so it could have been bought by a developer, because there has already been a precedent of new build in this area selling for 4,150 square feet, and that is at 94 Namli Avenue. So when you see that there's already a $1,000 difference divided by 350, yeah, we're talking about a 31% difference. This is relatively still lower than the 40% pre-COVID and the 59% during peak of COVID disruption to now. That 31% difference in your new build versus your rebuilt subdivisible plot is actually tailed down right now. Now let's look at one more plot. Now this plot is not subdivisible, it's 10 Namli Grove. So for PSF 2785 for $30 million. Now that is not a small quantum, and yet it went. The frontage is not that great. It's actually a trapezoid plot if you look at it. And of course, if you look at the Google Maps and you look at this particular plot, it's really nothing to talk about. So we want to emphasize that currently, even in District 10, that gap is roughly about 30% right now. It's no longer at that almost 60% gap from a resale to a new build, which actually reflects more about the increase in the resale prices in the market compared to what you're thinking about, like the cost of construction going down. So some action steps for us as landed buyers moving forward. And also, if you are a landed owner watching this and wondering what does this mean for me? Well, a few things. If you're a landed buyer, this means that it is relatively worthwhile to go for a new built landed plot or a recently built, meaning recently TOP'd in the last 3 to 6 years kind of landed plot, because such builds are actually going to be considerably undervalued compared to the whole market right now of the resale market, which has already steadily been going up. That's the first point. If you're a landed buyer and you want us to go through with you a good property consult, share with you more market insights, because buying a house starts really with market education, and that is why I do these videos, because I really hope to help you make good family-centric decisions that allow you to buy into an asset that's going to make the most value for you over time. I will be so happy to do that. You can scan this consult. Now, the second segment of people I would like to talk to are actually your landed owners who are thinking of selling your older plots. Now, your house probably hasn't been renovated for a while, or it could be that you have an asset that you actually haven't used, you haven't touched. It probably belongs to your family inheritance and it's maybe just being rented out at a pretty low rental rate because the house itself is old. Now, if you are doing that, consider making a sale right now in the current market, because we've already seen accelerated gains in the last 5 years, but especially in the more mature districts, we do see signs of a slowdown in terms of quantum, especially in District 10. That means that from last year to this year, the increase in our quantums weren't that high for average plots. However, of course, if you have a subdivisible plot, which means that your frontage is at least 20 meters, that might be of value to developers and might command a premium. On the other hand, if you do have a recently renovated, let's say you bought a terrace or a semi-D, it was recently renovated, or a newer build that only TOP'd within 3 to 6 years ago, you likely can be charging more of a premium similar to the new builds for your property, because the resale market has already gone up and now may be an opportune window of time as a landed owner to actually move to a larger landed asset class that will keep you more invested in this landed category. So let me recap for everybody. Landed buyers, consider making an effort to buy something that's a lot more move-in, better renovated, or even a newer build. We can even consider buying new builds from developers right now because the difference is really not that big. We're talking about an average of 90% in the whole market and even only just a 30% gap in prime District 10. Landed owners, if you are thinking to sell because the house is too big for you, it is old, it's hard to repair, you're not getting enough rental. By the way, your sale of the house will probably give you about 50 to 60 years worth of rental up front that you can actually take to do something with. I have other videos that you can watch on what we want to do with this. For example, multiply the money out to create never-ending wealth for your family, or even to other landed homes for your children. There can be a lot of options. We can talk about that. So that's one, if you're an owner who's thinking to just completely liquidate a particular asset because you know the market has moved up and because you know that the valuation you're getting right now is considerably overvalued versus a new build. And of course, the last group is that if you're a landed owner thinking to move to a larger landed house, this is actually a prime time, especially if you had just moved in the last 3 to 6 years, done a new renovation, move into a new build, made upgrades yourself. Now is a particularly good time because you can be charging a good premium for your particular unit, because unlike the new developer builds, people can kind of move in a lot earlier, but you are basically the second newest property that they can buy without having to have that wait, right? Because the wait for the new build sometimes costs time and emotionally people might not be willing to do so. So you could be charging a really good premium over the resale market, similar to a new build, maybe not as high as a new build, but similar to a new build, and that will give you the opportunity to get that profit and move into a larger landed home. So if you have more questions, feel free to give me a WhatsApp. I'm always available. My team and I are here to support you. Once again, I'm sarahxmiracle, and I would love to connect with you. See you in the next video, where I will be sharing more about the different districts in Singapore in terms of landed and where are the real opportunities right now in terms of districts landed in Singapore. See you soon.